The Hawaiian Moving Company is proudly sponsored by Hawaii's #1 chocolates, Hawaiian Host. I'm Michael W. Perry. Thank you for joining us for the Best of the Hawaiian Moving Company, Volume 2. Now, Volume 1 was a wild and wacky look at some of the things that make Hawaii such a special place. Volume 2 is the same, but different. So let's head to the beach and get into it. Early in the morning, oceanside of the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, situated smack in the midst of some of Hawaii's most pristine sand, you can find Joe Mays. Now you'll see Joe digging a few holes here and there, just minding his own business. That early in the morning, most folks think he's looking for loose change or lost watches. Well, if he happens to find those, it's just a bonus, because the only thing Joe is looking for is sand. Joe is Hawaii's sandman. He's easily the island's king of sandcastle making, but he's also one of the sand sculpting kings of the world. A multi-time national champ as well as world champ, Joe likes to create sandcastles just for fun.
I get a real kick out of it. As you can see, I can do it for hours. And you see me on my breaks. It's a cigarette, sips on the Coke, a couple of thank you very muches, and back to work.
Joe does most of his work with stuff that you'd probably throw away. Old pieces of formica, a couple of metal straps, and who knows what else. Joe uses these to turn a plan in his head into a sandy reality that everybody seems to love. And what's even more amazing, it's all done freehand. Just buckets and Tupperware and a couple of handy tools. Joe's abilities are not just Hawaii's secret. He's been on TV shows like PM Magazine, Eye on LA, and Real People, just to name a few. And with millions of people seeing his work on TV and hundreds of tourists taking pictures every day, he's heard a lot of compliments.
The greatest compliment? It's when an older person comes up and tells me it's one of the greatest things they've ever seen. Because, they've seen so much more. Like, we compare it to a little kid, and it could be the greatest thing he's ever seen, but he hasn't seen that much. But when an older person comes up, they've seen a lot, and that's a really good compliment if they can throw that one at you.
Well, young or old, his goal is to please them all, and there's still more to do. But that's just fine with the crowd. Looking at what's built isn't half as fun as seeing Joe build it, so he sticks with it. About 5 tons of sand, and 9 hours later, Joe's just about pow. The only discouraging thing for Joe is that before he leaves, the city and county rules make him knock it all down for safety reasons. And what he doesn't get, the tide does anyway. A world-class sandcastle from a world-class sand sculptor, all in a day's work. And all this, just for fun.
I wouldn't feel right if I had to charge the people for doing it, because I really enjoy it.
Now, while Joe is Hawaii's Sandman, the guy you're about to meet could be called Hawaii's Kite Man.
Gentlemen, the one with the green bag is over Honolulu first.
Jim Torres and his friends have all come to Sandy Beach with one goal in mind: to fly their way into the record books. All it's going to take is cooperation from Mother Nature his friends, and especially that $8,000 stack of kites. The old record stands at 100 kites. So that's where Jim and the crew have decided to start.
When we're setting up the kite, everything needs to be just right. The bridle needs to be adjusted, all the train lines need to be exactly even, and the spreader bars need to be adjusted as well.
This 100 stack is all rigged with heavy-duty equipment to handle the stress. The lines between the kites, or train lines, are 750-pound test, and the bridle is 2,500 pounds. Plus, the total sail area of all the kites here is enough to propel a pretty good-sized yacht. Once everything is ready and the kite crew has checked and rechecked the rig, it's just about time. Now, the two big bruisers alongside Jim aren't there just for looks. In case there's a big gust and the kite takes off, these guys have the job to stop Jim at any cost.
Ready? Yeah. Yeah, going.
Now, Jim can handle a stack of 100 kites by himself when he puts his entire weight behind it. But when the wind picks up, it's bye-bye Jim.
When I'm flying, I really have to concentrate. Because flying a stack that long, by the time the rear kite gets this instruction that the lead kite is giving it, one false move and I could be crashing a $4,000 kite.
100 stack is no problem, and after practicing a couple of warm-up loops, Jim brings it down gently so they can add another 25 kites and go for a new record. As you might imagine, adding 25% more sail area to the stack of kites means that Jim won't be able to hold on by himself. But somehow, you just know his buddies won't let him down. Or is that up?
If you see me sitting down, it's because the kite is starting to pull real hard. And that means you guys might have to sit down too.
The extra kites have thrown off the fine-tuning of the first set, so Jim's crews kept busy adjusting and resetting the record-breaking kite stack.
When we came out here, we knew it wasn't going to be easy. If it was, everyone in the country would be doing it. But I know we can do it.
Jim's crew sets it up again and finally gets him airborne. But 125 kites are a real challenge to stabilize. Now it's up to Jim and friends to control this arm-stretching beast for 5 minutes.
To make the record official, you have to be on the controlled flight for 5 minutes. And it's not as easy as it sounds. Because flying a kite that long, a stack that long, is like being pulled by a dump truck. And 5 minutes is an eternity.
Well, Jim and friends are more than a match for the 1/2 ton pull of the kite stack, and they hold on long enough to push the kite flying record to a new high. The next story combines flying, sitting, air, and water.
Yeah, what we've done is we've really streamlined it. For example, you can see how this is real swept back this way.
In the world of behind-the-boat innovation, Mike Murphy is one of the kings. He's developed a device that's part ski, part stool, part wing, and it delivers a one-of-a-kind aquatic adventure. He calls it the air chair. Now, today's ride will be especially fun because it's behind the boat of the father of competitive water skiing, Job Siderhout.
Never used to be here. That's to prevent you from getting pulled out of the water. Without a doubt, over the last 10 years, the air chair has been the most consuming thing probably of my life. Just redesigning it, streamlining it, get more performance out of it, day, night. It's overwhelming. Ready.
Created from 38 pounds of aluminum and fiberglass, the air chair is more than living up to its name. Now, with some design enhancements from Mike and his partner Bob Woolley, the winged water toy is more stable, easier to handle, and now it can be towed to speeds of 30 miles an hour versus 21 for the old model. With those new characteristics together, and it's time for some major air.
Once we created the air chair and started riding it, I knew riding it just wasn't going to be enough, and I had visions of me doing a flip on it, and all my partners saying, "Murphy, you're crazy, you're going to kill yourself." Well, obviously they were wrong.
As the undeniable world champion of sit-down flips, Mike is creating aquatic double takes wherever he goes. He makes these maneuvers look easy, almost effortless, which is what you'd expect from a true master.
When people see you throw a flip on an air chair, they're just totally blown away. They're not expecting it. I mean, it's so high and slow, and it's just, I don't care how good the skier is, they're blown away.
So Mike continues his sit-down crusade to revolutionize water skiing. He claims the design is such that you can't twist a knee, wrench an ankle, and when you crash, the air chair can't hit you. Plus, it usually takes the initial impact itself. All the better reason to leave your old-fashioned skis at the dock and take a seat toward the sky. As you might guess, the air chair is a little bit difficult to master. That's why you don't see a whole lot of them even here in Hawaii. Right now, the Hawaiian Moving Company moves down the island chain to the Big Island and a wet adventure with one of Hawaii's larger residents. Dan McSweeny is one of Hawaii's elite few whale researchers. An island resident for 2 decades, Dan does most of his local research off the Kona coast. And there he takes advantage of the Big Island's one-of-a-kind conditions to find Hawaii's native whales year-round.
Kona is very unique. It's got these large mountains that keep it in a lee situation, the deep offshore cliffs, the upwellings from the currents, the fish, the food, all of that lend itself to an area that is accessible, clear, warm water, and lots of marine mammals generally all year round. On any given day, you can go out there and run into something. And there are very few places in the world that are like that.
Within minutes of being on the water, Dan's first encounter is with local bottlenose dolphins. These cousins of Flipper seem to stretch for miles that day. And even though they're not exactly on the top of his priority list, it's hard to resist spending just a little time with these cute, friendly little guys. With whales on his mind, Dan keeps moving along the coast. He knows these waters better than just about anyone, and he should. He's logged thousands of hours on the ocean, and over the years he's gotten a pretty good feel for where his favorite gentle giants will hang out. And with a little help from his friends in local fishing boats, Dan makes it look easy.
Just to find whales in open water, when you think about it, you know, it's pretty unusual just to be able to go out there. You're a tiny point on the water, they are a tiny point, and those intersect, and boom, you've got an encounter with whales.
Once again, in a matter of minutes, he's found a pod, an extremely large herd of native Hawaiian pilot whales. The mothers and calves are being escorted by the males, and these mature bulls will weigh around 6,000 pounds and grow to be about 20 feet long. But like most whales, they never seem to give people any trouble.
It's hard to describe the feeling that you go through when you're in the water with whales, the excitement, the exhilaration, all of that. Plus you're sharing a moment in their lives, which you normally wouldn't be otherwise.
Dan's federal permit is what allows him, and today us, to study these awesome creatures. A very special job that takes very special people to do it.
To me, it's the perfect job. I get to spend each day in the water with animals that I thoroughly enjoy being with. And I can't think of doing anything else besides what I'm doing.
Even though it looks like fun and games to you and me, for Dan, there's plenty of hard work, long hours, and very little recognition. But Dan doesn't mind. It makes him happy to study Hawaii's underwater mammals and help people understand more about the whales right here in our backyard. Dan's federal permits allow him to do what he does. And over on the other side of the island is a place where permits are also in place to protect a different kind of species.
Okay, this one's gonna need help too. Who wants to help this one? Okay, you wanna help? Okay, everyone's gonna take turns.
Today, this group of Na'alehu Elementary School kids is in for a treat. They're about to witness one of nature's little miracles. You see, on this secluded stretch of Kamehame Beach is a clutch of hawksbill turtle eggs about to hatch. And the only person who knows where they are is Volcanoes Park Resource Manager Larry Katahira.
A turtle's coming!
The monitoring is done primarily by volunteers, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 6 months out of a year. The goals of this program is to ensure that the hatchlings are successfully entering the ocean and also educating the public, especially the younger kids in Hawaii. They need to learn about this unique and rare species that you can't see anywhere else. Okay, we want to count the total number of hatchlings. The average incubation period for the hawksbill turtle is about 60 days. And the emergence of these hatchlings usually take place during the night or when temperature is cooler. Here we have really a treat. They're emerging in the afternoon and we're able to see it. And it's probably because it's an overcast day. Normally, about 90% of these hatchlings will be able to make it out of the nest on their own and enter the ocean. But because they are so rare in Hawaii and throughout the world, we're trying to save every hatchling from the nest, the ones that are stranded, and that's why we have the kids helping us today. Okay, you want to put her right down on the sand. Hold her, hold her. Okay, put her on the sand, face her down the ocean. Okay. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and I never knew what was in our backyard. I hope these kids today will have a better appreciation and feel for what they've seen and take it away into future generations. The Honuea is very unique and extremely rare in Hawaii.
This video is just part of a 1-hour documentary on hawksbills being produced by the Honu Project, a turtle conservation group based here in Hawaii. They, along with a lot of other people, recognize the fact that turtles have survived for over 1 million years, and they're an important part of our ecosystem. You'll be able to see the TV documentary later this year, and with the help of folks like Larry and the newest generation, we'll have hawksbill turtles for another 1 million years or so. Now, once again, this encounter was only possible with a permit, since Hawaii's turtles are off limits to just about everyone. But over on Maui, we have an adventure for you that anybody can enjoy. It's one of the most beautiful, unusual, stark, and serene places in all of Hawaii. For over 1 million years, Haleakala's loomed over the eastern half of Maui, and from the summit, thousands of folks every year peer down into one of the most spectacular volcanic craters in the world. Some just look, others take the next step. Some enjoy flying past the sites as quickly as possible, others enjoy a more leisurely pace, while still others would prefer to combine the two with a riding sightseeing expedition.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the top of Haleakala Crater in the Maui Mule Ride. I want to go over a little bit of riding directions and some instructions so we can have a good, safe trip today.
Craig Moore is Haleakala's only mule skinner. With over 2 decades of experience inside the crater, Craig's backyard is Haleakala, and he knows it better than just about anybody.
Haleakala Crater is one of my favorite places in the world. I mean, how many people can say that they get to spend their days in an office like this? Nancy, you ready? Get on, hula girl.
Today, Craig is taking this group of riders for a 4-footed tour of the crater. No experience necessary for this kind of journey, just the ability to sit back, relax, and let your mule do the work.
You should hold your steering wheel and your brakes by this front knot right here. Great. Riding a mule is just like driving a car. You got your steering wheel and your brakes, you got your first gear, your second gear, your left and your right turn, and your reverse. Okay, turn them and give them the gas.
The crater's big, about 21 miles around the rim, and the floor is more than 3,000 feet below, so this is the way to go. With Craig taking the lead, everybody heads off for a casual day-long stroll.
I like to use mules up here because throughout history they've been used in the mountains for their sure-footedness and their durability and their dependability. They're a lot safer, they're more intelligent, and they're stronger.
Besides being the easiest form of travel in an area that can be very tiring by foot, the best part about traveling with Craig and his mules is that Craig knows all the facts.
So these are our silver swords. You can see some in bloom back here. This is the season. They live from 7 to 50 years. They bloom once and then they die. The silver... You know, I wasn't born in Hawaii, but I've been here for 20 years and I've been coming into the crater for 20 years. Something about it just really attracted me and I wanted to know about it, and I've gone to school and taken courses and I've read books and I've sought information from whoever knew about it so that I could collect knowledge and share it with our local folks that come and visit with us. This area over here where these grass polys are is called holua. Holua is the ancient sport of grass sledding. It was reserved for the elite. They used to make sleds from the runners of mamani trees.
Craig has trips that range anywhere from 2 hours to more than 6. Depending on your schedule and your taste for the outdoors and your tolerance of the saddle, he can take on a trip up to 14 miles. That covers just about every interesting corner of the crater.
When you're down there on the crater floor, it is so beautiful. You just can't imagine how beautiful it is. You have to experience it for yourself.
Well, the first time I came to Haleakala, I hiked all the way down to the crater, and I can definitely say that riding a mule is a much more enjoyable experience.
So bring a big hat, a lot of sunscreen, and make sure your backside's in pretty good shape. The Maui Mule Ride is a trip that's not to be missed. The experience from the bottom looking up is even more spectacular than the reverse. And until you try it yourself, you'll never understand why. Haleakala Crater is still one of the most unusual places on the planet, and you can walk it, if you're physically fit, for free. If you need the company of Craig and his mules, though, call Craterbound on Maui. Right now, what do you say we head just offshore, the friendly island of Molokaʻi, to meet a man who really can walk on water? It's 5 o'clock in the morning, just offshore of Papohaku Beach on the western tip of Molokaʻi. Aboard the Escapade, Dan Hodes is preparing to take on his toughest challenge ever. For the past year, he's had one major thought in mind: to walk across the Molokaʻi Channel.
Water walking is something that I do well, and nobody else is doing it, and I feel like I kind of have a corner on the sport, and it's for that reason that I put together these various walks around the world, and I've had great fun with it.
At 6:05, Dan left the boat and headed for the Molokaʻi shore on his water-walking pontoons. He calls them ski-acks. His pair of $600 walking shoes would have to keep him afloat for the rest of the day if he was going to succeed.
The Molokaʻi Channel has got the reputation of being one of the most venerable and fiercest body of waters on the globe, and it was for that reason why I decided to walk across.
Dan's a 33-year-old attorney from Newport Beach, California, a marathon enthusiast, and he estimated that crossing the 26 miles between the two islands would take him about 6 or 7 hours. But he had never been to Hawaii before, and he had never experienced the Molokaʻi Channel.
I started walking on water a little over 2 years ago. I started with the crossing from Catalina Island to Newport Beach. That would have been in September of '86, and then I've done a number of walks since, across the Cook Strait in New Zealand, across the English Channel, the Straits of Gibraltar, and now the Molokaʻi Channel.
On board the escort boat were Captain Mike Micklethwait and Dan's girlfriend, Marla Hughes. It's up to them to assist in any way they can, passing Dan his water, food, and most important of all, giving him psychological support. Well into the morning, things were going as planned. Dan felt he was making good time, and the weather seemed to be on his side. Maybe 15-knot winds with minor swells, especially for the Molokaʻi Channel, they were minor. As the morning continued, the channel seemed to come out of its calm sleep. The swells began to reach 4 to 6 feet, something that Dan had never encountered before.
When I first started out this morning, I felt real strong. The first half of this trip, I felt real strong until I had that fall, which was unfortunate. It was the first time I've ever fallen on the things.
A 6-foot swell had blindsided him and knocked him down. Now it was time for the crew to help pull things together and to get Dan back on his feet.
It took quite a bit out of me, both physically and psychologically. Physically, I wrenched my back out, and it took a while to get over that. Psychologically, I've never fallen on the things before. I've never been out in this kind of sea either. So it had an impact. It really did. I felt like I had to kind of go the extra yard to overcome that.
It took nearly 25 minutes before Dan would be up and walking again, and he didn't seem to have the same energy with this takeoff that he did before the fall.
It was difficult to get back on because I was in a lot of pain, and I was tired, and it would have been very easy just to kind of hop in the boat and go home and have a beer. By
1 o'clock, Dan could see Oahu pretty well. He knew he was getting closer. but his body wasn't all that excited about it.
Well, I started hitting the wall about 3/4 of the way across, with Coco head clearly visible, and I just felt like I was putting a lot of effort into something and making no progress at all. And I felt that way for about an hour and a half, and my legs really began to sear at that point. That was tough. That was the toughest part of the trip, clearly. I realized I had made it about a 1/4 mile offshore, and paddling the last couple 100 yards in was fine, and it was just a really terrific feeling to have accomplished it. Probably the toughest walk that I've done so far, and it really feels wonderful.
So, in a time of 9 hours and 55 minutes, Dan Hodes did what no one else had ever tried before. A walk across the Molokaʻi Channel. It was a goal that he had set for himself nearly a year before. And finally, he had completed it.
As Dan continues to walk his way to fame around the world, the next folks you're about to meet get their kicks with rats and birds.
When the sun goes down in Hawaii, these little predators are stalking some of Hawaii's most endangered species and threatening to exterminate a part of Hawaii that's thrived for centuries.
Thinking about how to collect some of the eggs from the Niʻihau nest.
We're in the middle of the Haleakala National Wildlife Refuge here on the Big Island. At about the 5,000-foot level above Lapahoihoi, wildlife biologist Steve Fancy and his crew are conducting a nature study.
Hawaii is the most isolated island chain in the world, and because of that, we have a spectacular world-class collection of birds. And they're part of the Hawaiian culture, and they're important to everybody.
Yeah, I think next week we'll go ahead and take all the nets from the lower grid, moving back up here to the upper grid.
In the third year of a 5-year study, Steve's trying to determine just what kind of damage rats are doing to Hawaii's native bird population. The most helpful tools in studying birds are called mist nets. Placed strategically around their 250-acre study area, the nets are nearly invisible to low-flying birds. Steve and Jason Townsend hoist them up in a daily routine that will gently snag some birds so they can log population and location information of each species.
Okay, Jason, my end's free here. We can raise it up. Put this one all the way up the top.
Steve will set 3 or 4 nets and quickly circle back to the first. He doesn't want anything he catches to stay entangled any longer than necessary.
Hawaii's birds are in trouble. A lot of these populations are going down to zero. They're going extinct. And so we're trying to preserve part of the Hawaiian culture and protect these birds.
The first catch of the day is a Leothrix. Although he's an attractive little guy, this is not a favorite species of many endangered bird lovers. See, the Leothrix is an introduced species that's actually taking the place of some of the natives. It's not a bad bird, it's just not a Hawaiian one.
Do I put the band on the right leg?
Yeah, right leg on this one.
Okay.
Steve and Jason will log all the necessary information from our little feathered friend. Then after they weigh it, they'll band it and release it, so if it's caught again, they'll know it. Now, Steve and Jason aren't the only folks you'll find in the Hakalau forest. They call Stephen Mosier the rat guy. While this particular study's dealing with birds, the real focus is directed toward the relationship between rats and birds. Steve's trying to decipher the amount of damage that non-native rats are doing to Hawaii's native flying population. So while part of the team's dealing with airborne activity, Steve is earthbound and concentrating on some long-tailed critters. By the way, he'll cover these traps, not to disguise them, but to protect anything that gets caught in here. An unsuspecting rat could sit in here for nearly a day, so this will keep the heat down and the predators away.
There's more rats out there than we imagined. In one study area, we took out 3,000 of them, and there's still more out there.
I got an EEV in this net.
Not more than a few hundred yards away, mist net number 2 comes up with a lucky catch, a spectacular EEV. The black body and red head made this a favorite bird for ancient Hawaiians, feather capes ablaze. Now it's so scarce it's rarely seen except here.
The birds are an important part of the Hawaiian culture. The Hawaiian culture really is tied into the land and the forest and the birds. And these are one of the few native species that were here before humans arrived.
For the next few hours, Steve and Jason will collect different birds and record and release them. Meanwhile, as the afternoon comes to an end, the rat guy can only wait until dark and hope the rats do what they do.
Okay, let's get this thing started up.
While the trap just sits overnight, there's still plenty for the rat guy and his crew to do after hours. This thing is what our armed forces use to search out the enemy at night. But this enemy has a long tail.
One of the neat devices that we're using is the flare, which we can use at night to pick up the heat of the rat while they're moving through the trees or on the ground.
One on the ground right there.
This technology is indispensable in helping to confirm our local biologists' greatest concern about rats and birds. They've known all along that rats are a menace in the forest. Now they can find out exactly how. And with the FLUR, all they have to do is set up in a field and wait. Sooner or later, these little rodents will get to work.
Wow. Rat went right up to the nest. It looks like he's in the nest. Yeah, I can see the eggs glowing in there. And he's actually eating the eggs in the nest. Wow.
This shot catches the rat red-handed. The bird eggs warm because of the hatchling inside. The rat heads right for it, making himself at home and ultimately killing what could have been another addition to our diminishing bird supply.
Take a look.
Using the flare is exciting because it opens up a whole new world into the rat's behavior. It turns night into day. You can actually see what they're doing out there in the tree.
But while the video part of Stephen's work is done at night for the benefit of the rat, his day job's just as important. Every morning after setting his traps, he checks them one by one to see what the night delivered.
Most of the rats that we catch, we just mark and release, where we just ear tag them and let them go, and hopefully catch them later on down the line to see what their movements are throughout our grid.
Each rat will be cataloged, banded, and released, just like the birds. They'll also remove rats from parts of the study area to see how that affects the other inhabitants. It's a painfully slow procedure that will take a total of 5 years to finish.
Our job as researchers is to make recommendations that is it worth getting rid of the rats? If you spend the money to get rid of rats, are the bird populations really going to come back enough that it's worth the money and the trouble?
These guys don't do this for the money. They do it because they love it. It's a way of life that's an acquired taste at best. They live in the woods without many creature comforts, but they're comfortable around the creatures. The big picture here is that these researchers will pinpoint the problem and find the solution. And of course, time is not on their side, because as any grade school kid knows, extinction is forever.
Next up, another animal adventure, but this one is underwater. Okay, we are diving, but not with these guys. We'll board the Kona Aggressor dive boat after sunset for a less traumatic adventure with Captain Guy Garcia.
Remember, don't touch them. These mantas are very sensitive. They don't like to be touched very much, and they don't like to be ridden.
One way to guarantee an exciting dive is to present some of Mother Nature's unusual underwater creatures in the eeriness of a night dive. That's exactly what Guy has in store for us tonight. Manta Ray Village is a dive spot that's getting worldwide attention from people like National Geographic. The lights at the Kona Surf have been attracting rays for nearly 20 years. Now this dive spot all but guarantees incredible aquatic encounters.
One of the problems about diving with manta rays around the world is the fact that they are very unpredictable to find out where they're going to be, and you never know really if they're going to be there. Here on this dive site, you know they're going to be here every night, and you can almost set your watch by the time they're going to show up. So are you ready? Ready. Let's go for it. Okay.
I've been diving all over the world photographing manta rays, and this spot off the Kona Surf is one of the best there is. You know, the amount of manta rays here and the behavior is just unparalleled. You can't get any better than this.
Jim Watt is a professional underwater photographer. Although he makes his home in Kona, his works have been shot and published all over the world. But even with his global credentials, this location is always a treat for him. It's also a treat for anyone else who heads 40 feet to the bottom to witness Kona's manta rays.
As soon as you turn the lights from the boat, this attracts small shrimp and krill, which is the manta ray's food source. As long as the lights stay on, the manta rays will come in and scoop up this krill, and they'll be here all night, as long as we keep the lights on.
Guy has a powerful handheld light that attracts krill like termites around a lanai light. The more light, the more krill, and the mantas know it. These winged creatures can grow up to 12 feet across, but they glide effortlessly through clouds of krill, creating an incredibly beautiful ballet, the likes of which will never be seen outside this watery world.
For me, diving with these majestic creatures, I never get tired of it. There's a beautiful rhythm to it. It's very relaxing to watch them, especially with the lights we have in the water. And if I was the first time watching, I'm sure that would be a memory that would be never lost.
This spot is such a great place to dive with manta rays and photograph them because of the clarity of the water, the calmness of the water, and the sheer numbers of manta rays that show up here.
To have one of the ocean's most graceful inhabitants fly around you for almost an hour is enough to captivate even the most hardened scuba diver. It's an invitation to view and record nature at her very best, an invitation that should not be refused. Truly majestic creatures, aren't they? Time to head up the island chain right now to Kauai, the Garden Island. We're going above the wettest place on Earth. A day like this on Kauai, or anywhere in Hawaii for that matter, is a pilot's dream. Light winds, barely a cloud in the sky, endless visibility, more than any Sky fan could ask for. Needless to say, Jerry Charlebois is very pleased. As a hang glider and ultralight flyer, Jerry's been cruising Hawaii skies for 16 years. And when he gets conditions like this, he's up early, anxious to take off.
Hawaii is one of the most premier spots in the world due to the fact that we have outrageous scenery, year-round flying, and consistent winds for soaring.
Today, Jerry and his flight pal Hans will be held aloft by Jerry's 34-foot wingspan Ultralight. It's basically a sit-down motorized hang glider. Some people call them trikes. 3 wheels, a small fuselage, and a 68-horsepower engine. The machine's built for 2 and packs twice the fun of the single version.
This enables me to take somebody up that has never gone before, and I can pass on my 18 years of flying experience and put it in their hands immediately, and within 15 minutes, they're there flying it. I can get them flying it, and they they can rely on me to make sure I bring it back to the ground safely.
Everything's checked and rechecked. The weather's perfect. They head down the runway for a glorious flight.
I was pretty excited getting into this motorized glider. It was a totally different experience. Getting in the cockpit and actually feeling the controls and hearing the motor running, it was a totally different thing for me.
Now, time for a flyby of one of Kauai's tallest peaks. Usually shrouded in clouds, Mount Waialeale stands 5,000 feet above sea level, while getting drenched with 500 inches of rain per year.
One of my favorite spots over here is Mount Waialeale, and we don't get to go up there very often because of the weather. It's typically, being the wettest spot on Earth, it's shrouded in cloud. Well, days like today, we lucked out and we were able to cruise around up there by the waterfalls, and you can, from that altitude at 6,000 feet above the center of the island, you can see the whole island, and it's just unparalleled beauty.
We went over towards the mountain, and as we climbed over the peak, we could see sheer cliffs and waterfalls. We started doing steep turns over the waterfalls, and I was even doing the flying. It was spectacular.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip on a perfect day. As this part of Kauai opens up for a quick look-see, both flyers feel lucky to have the wind in their face, an endless panorama, and the chance to get a spectacular bird's-eye view of this part of our islands. If you'd like to fly, give Jerry a call at Birds of Paradise on Kauai. And while you're over there, how about a trip to the Forbidden Island? The Forbidden Island. And from the air, it looks forbidding. 72 square miles of mostly dry scrubland, which has been explored by only a handful of people. For almost a century and a half, Niʻihau has been the property of Kauai's Robinson family. Their goal's always been to perpetuate the Hawaiian culture. And what better place to preserve it than on an island that's a 17-mile swim from the hustle and hassle of today's world. But it turns out owning your own island isn't quite as carefree as it might sound. There are plenty of hassles. It's an ecological problem, however, that brings us here today.
Okay, let's load up and get ready to go.
Bruce Robinson probably knows this island as well as the people who live here. A friend, supplier, landlord, and frequent visitor to Niʻihau, the future of the island is in his hands. Also in his hands, the solution to a big problem. Or more accurately, a pig problem.
Back in 1972, we had a limited water supply. We started to build up our catchment supply. Then the fertility level of the animals built up. Now the food is a limiting factor, so they're tearing the place up.
At least 6,000 wild pigs now inhabit an area that can only support about 2,000. So Bruce, his kids, Sherry and Jimmy, and 17th generation Niʻihau resident Junior Hano head out to deal with the task of thinning the local pig population.
The pigs started eating the albatross when they came in February. They eat the adults, they hit the eggs, the nest, then they hit the green sea turtles, they wiped them out, took them down to real low level, and they'd even go after small monk seal babies, and then they hit the crabs. We realized we had to do something.
Although no guns are allowed on Niʻihau, ecological destruction like this requires an exception to the rule. When local residents look for a little kalua pork, they usually head to the bush with a horse and a knife. But this way is better for the hunter and the hunted.
It's kind of different to me because, you know, we weren't raised around guns and all that stuff. So it's some kind of experience that not too many people on my island, you know, has experienced hunting with guns like that.
The first thing you realize on Niʻihau is that making any kind of headway into pig territory is no easy task. Some keawe thorns here are as big as 10-penny nails, so it's not an easy hike. Once Bruce spots a sign that pigs have been in the area, however, he knows they're on the right track.
To find a pig, you got to find where he's been. You go look for his tracks, or you find him himself. You know, you got a good idea where he's living, and so you go to his habitat.
With 6,000 pigs in a relatively small area, it doesn't take long for the dogs, Kiko, Bandit, and Patches, to track down their quarry. Now it's up to Bruce and the rest of the team to close as soon as possible.
Probably one of the key things to remember in pig hunting is that when the dogs get going and contact the pig, you need to get there as fast as possible. The longer the dogs are in contact with the pig, the more chance of they're getting hurt. And of course, you want to take care of your dogs.
With one quick shot, the pig is down instantly. Junior's going to prepare the meat for his family and other Niʻihau neighbors, and then head out to look for more.
Hunting for me is a lifestyle that my dad taught me how to hunt, and we survive from hunting, and we eat what we hunt for.
Although some folks have a hard time accepting this type of herd thinning, something has to be done. Niʻihauans support the project because they're helping to protect their own land and getting food in return. This will also help a smaller, more compact pig population become stronger and cut down on starvation. And with planned hunting tours, the island gets another badly needed source of revenue. Bottom line for the folks on Niʻihau, though, it's the best way for them to preserve their own unique way of life. If you'd like to join in on the Niʻihau pig hunt, call Niʻihau Helicopters on Kauai. Next up, a visit with one of the world's most recognizable artists. In 1985, the Hawaiian Moving Company introduced Hawaii to Wyland. At that time, he was a starving artist from Laguna Beach with one name and an incredible touch with an industrial spray painter. He also had a whale of an idea, a much larger than life-size canvas.
I think back now to the wall that I painted in Honolulu, and it seemed so long ago, and that mural at that time took me over 3 months to complete, and 2,000 gallons of paint, and a lot has happened since then. A lot of good things.
In the years since Wailing Wall number 6, Wyland added 72 more signature works of art to his collection in 6 cities spread over 5 countries. He's now a globally recognized artist and a world record holder. It's this gigantic circular piece of art right near the Spruce Goose and the QE2 in Long Beach that put him in the Guinness Book, sharing a page with Vincent van Gogh.
Back in 1981 in Laguna Beach, California, I painted the first whaling wall. After I painted that first one, I knew that I would have to paint 100 of these murals, not only to create awareness for the whales, but for all the oceans. And it's been my goal now and my passion to continue to do these monumental murals in various cities around the world.
He's a painting wizard and a marketing master, but Wyland's whaling walls are all done free of charge with donated materials, and they often become one of a city's favorite focal points. But more amazingly is the fact that these huge murals are all done freehand and now can be completed in about a week's time.
From the very beginning, I was inspired to try to give something back. And these public works of art, whaling walls, are my gift back to people. And most people will not ever have the opportunity to go out and see the whales, but if they can see these whales depicted in these giant murals, I believe they'll become more aware. And I work very fast. Most of the murals are done in a matter of days or weeks. There's no rest when you're on planetary duty.
With his Wyland walls promoting his uncanny ability to bring the ocean to life on just about any size surface, Wyland has now become a top-selling marine artist. He lives on the North Shore of Oahu, and this is where he spends most of his free time, if you can call it free time. Just feet from the beach, with the ocean at his fingertips, he spends about half the day with some sort of artistic instrument in his hand.
From the early 70s, I was inspired by watching Jacques Cousteau on television. I'm hoping that my work will inspire people in a similar way. And for me, it comes out very naturally. I don't really do any preliminary drawing. Everything just kind of flows off the end of the brush. And the only thing really better than painting for me is actually experiencing or being in the ocean.
Of course, Wyland's world comes from first-hand contact with the ocean's creatures. As one of the few select people allowed to experience some of nature's endangered species close up, Wyland spends hours on end doing what he can call research, but you and I would call having a blast.
When I started painting marine art in the early 70s, I was the classic starving artist. I couldn't give these paintings away. But now I can't create enough artwork for people, and the support is amazing all over the world. If I could have painted a picture depicting my life in the last 10 years, I couldn't create anything close to the miracle that has really happened to me. I feel very fortunate.
In 10 years, Wyland has gone from the guy who painted the wall to an internationally famous marine artist. With his ever-enthusiastic attitude and his boyish charm and his unfathomable abilities, everything he touches seems to turn to gold. They say that over 1 billion people see his murals every year. And with around 40 galleries spread from Hawaii to Key West, dozens more walls in the works, a network television show, and who knows what else, Wyland is proving that the difference between being starving and star is just a little paint and a lot of talent.
At Hawaiian Host, we take the freshest macadamia nuts we can find and dry roast them to perfection. Then cover them with a delicious blend of rich chocolates or smooth caramel to create products of incomparable taste and quality. perfect combinations of the finest ingredients that have become a continual source of pleasure to millions of satisfied customers. Hawaiian Host, Hawaii's gift to the world.
Well, thanks for joining us for our second look through 20 years of Hawaiian Moving Company video. If you don't have Volume 1 yet, there's a phone number coming up in just a minute. And don't forget to join us every Sunday night on KGMB television in Hawaii for things you'll only see on the Hawaiian Moving Company.